Helio guys, and welcome back to another episode of Infinite Magicraid. With a big influx of newer players as the game has progressed, I wanted to talk to you guys about team composition, essentially for the main campaign of the game, and this will help you get through the common stage. There's hard, there's nightmare, and then there's also hell. So without further ado, let's go ahead and just slide over there real quick, and keep in mind that there's different team compositions that you can use, but I found that this one, at least for me, has worked out quite well. So I'm just going to click over here because I'm currently at the end of Nightmare, just as an example to show you guys, and I'm going to show you guys exactly what I'm working with here. So right here, my go-to team composition so far that's worked out for me is essentially having 3 DPS and then you're going to have 2 supporters. Now when you're going in here with 2 supporters, it's important to keep in mind that running double healers, I'm not sure what content that you're doing, but that seems extremely redundant because that probably indicates that you have one healer that is just bad and you're trying to compensate with 2 healers. So to get past that, just make sure that your healer that you're using is awakened, and if you have copies of them, feel free to feed that to them to boost up their exclusive weapon, which raises their base stats just like your DPS and also makes their heals more potent. And also check their gear too, because gear is basically another topic for another video in itself. But for my example here, I am running my Magus and also Reliant as my 2 supporters. So Magus's job is purely to do heals, and Reliant's job is, due to her ultimate and her just basic nature of being tanky, I don't really have to worry about her dying because even at a lower level than everyone else, her stats and the way that her kit is just built defensively, and having her on a speed set kind of enables me to act faster than the opposing enemies, which can be a problem especially in Nightmare once you hit the boss wave and the boss acts before you and just wiping out your entire squad. So I do recommend Reliant for every single squad that you're using, regardless of what you have, unless you have something better or you come up with like a different team composition. Reliant and a healer is just the way to go with supporters, because having Reliant being able to act before everyone else boosts up your whole entire team's actions so they can get their moves off quicker, and she can also potentially prevent the other opposing side from acting because she can also lower their speed, is well worth the slot. And even though it does cost you a slot, you're pretty much guaranteed, you know, with some RNG involved, to hopefully get your turns off first and take out the biggest threats. Moving on to the 3 DPS, once again this is fairly similar in terms of what you should be doing here. Normally, because of the way that the game is structured, we are provided with legendaries after certain pity pulls. I can't remember them right off the top of my hand though, so it really depends on what legendary that you have. I will recommend though that you end up trying to hopefully pull legendaries that are more attack based, and I did end up making not necessarily a tier list, but just a point of reference for you guys to use, kind of on you know, picking what you want to use and how that you can use them, because there's so many legendaries and they're so varied, and of course with patches things may change here, but I'll include that picture below, well, inside the video shall I say, of what the legendaries that I recommend you using. If you get more than one of these legendaries, then feel free to run both of those as your team compositions. But even if you have one legendary, I think that's fine enough to get you through the stages, because there's other epics that you will find out here very shortly are just as usable, if not more usable than the legendaries, because with epics they're a lot easier to build. Because look, at my Rosalia, for example, she is at Awaken, she's not at Awaken, but she's exclusive weapon +5, and she's currently at Awaken 3. She's fully booked up, and I mean, once she hits Awaken 5, she's done. Like, that's it. My investment with her is done. So any more Rosalia copies that I get automatically get sacrificed to the gods here. But moving on to epics in general, so let's say for instance you end up getting this baby girl right here as your legendary. So you still need 2 slots for epics. Now, one of the go-to slots that has been for epics is none other than the man himself, which is Holder, if I can find him real quick. Just because Holder is a very efficient unit in terms of his counterattack, and he also has bleed, and there's some minor leech going involved, meaning with some spicy sets on him, he could basically kind of sustain himself, and paired up with a healer like Magus or Liz, you are essentially able to win stages just because they're going to be attacking Holder. Holder's going to be counterattacking and also getting his moves off, and the loop just continues until someone dies, which will probably be the opposing side if Holder stats are good enough. So Holder is definitely an easy carry. Is he like automatically, you know, the unit that you have to beat the entire campaign? I disagree with that. Is he efficient though? But of course. So let's say, for instance, you end up with Holder, for example. Congratulations, you now have Holder. Another epic that could pair up nicely with Holder, though, is going to be Offner, because she has bleed with her skills, and since Holder does more damage with bleed on targets, that kind of boosts up Holder's whole potency when it comes to dealing damage with targets, because I believe his passive is the one where he gets more damage from bleed, which just makes him more efficient all around. So if they counterattack Holder, or if Holder gets hit by them and he counterattacks and they have bleed on him, congratulations, that's more damage. That leads to more runs being stable because he's getting more damage and clearing out annoying waves a lot quicker. So the main takeaway here is, depending on your units that you try to build as epics, try to build around those units to kind of build off their strength so you get the most out of them. And let's say, for instance, you don't have either of these guys. Well, congratulations, there's other ways to get around this. My thing too is there's Obero. You can feel free to use Obero. He is a character that I do recommend because we get him on the second day of playing the game, and he's a fine DPS. I'm not going to say that he's top tier, but he's fine. He can get you 3 things. So if you do pull more than 1 copy of him and get his exclusive weapon built up, that's perfectly fine as well. But with Feebleness, there is stuff you can do with that, because it kind of like makes the target take more damage, if I'm remembering correctly. But once again, you would probably need a nuker to kind of take advantage of that, and Moray, hopefully I'm pronouncing his name right, if not it's Moray, but this guy over here does really good damage too, especially once you get him booked up with his wave clearing move, which is his AoE, which I also believe gets stronger the less enemies are on the field, and when he hits targets he can also lower their their turn or their ability to get a turn. So him being paired up with Reliant already is some nice synergy, because you're kind of ensuring that you're delaying the enemy's turn to get your squad off and do all kinds of damage to them. But let's say, for instance, you have these guys. I think that's a perfectly fine team composition. Am I going to say that, oh, congratulations, you've beaten campaign? No, not necessarily. But you do have a good basis of, if you end up pulling other units in the future, you could always swap one of these bad boys out, which I would probably say Obero in this situation, because there's another team composition I could recommend for you guys, which is more focused on just burst damage and kind of raw damage in general, and that's going to be with Lester here, who I do believe applies defense down on some of his moves, if not one of his moves, and then also Rosalia. Because Rosalia's main selling point is that she does high burst damage, which hits really hard. Not super hard, but it hits really hard for what it is. And with Lester having the opposing side with their defense decreased, this also helps you to get damage off of your entire squad. So not only is Rosalia going to do more, for example, but also the legendary that you have in your party is going to do more damage. And with Rosalia's kit, she also boosts up the crit damage of your party. So you having, crit rate sets on your party to help boost up their crit rate, and you know that they're pretty much guaranteed to crit, well, congratulations, that crit is going to do more damage being paired up with Rosalia in general. But that pretty much covers team compositions here. If there's anything to take away from this, it's, at this point in time, I would recommend everyone try and run 3 DPS, preferably a good legendary, which I have included a little snippet of what I call or what I define as good. Keep in mind, this is just one man's opinion, and this isn't something that's like the Holy Grail. You don't have to follow this. This is just something that I threw together to hopefully give you insight to what you should be rolling with. Not saying that you have to use it, but what you should be rolling with. And of course, as things change, the list becomes less and less accurate with each and every update. But I think with this, you shouldn't have any problems, especially breaking into Hell, where once again, if you're having issues clearing out a stage and you have the correct team composition consisting of hopefully Reliant, you can run either Magus or Liz. Obviously Liz is a better choice, but I'm using Magus for science. And 3 DPS, preferably one of those being your legendary that you get from like a pity pool, and 2 epics that synergize well with each other. The main thing standing in your way is just getting those units built up with skill scrolls and getting them awakened and getting their emblems filled out to kind of, you know, get the best out of them. And of course, the icing on the cake is going to be exclusive weapons. But that's pretty much all that I have to provide today. If you guys have any insight or any other team compositions that you have been experimenting with and have been able to clear out most of the campaign, if not all of the campaign, feel free to leave that in the comments below, because that can help other players. And thank you guys so much for watching. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I will see you guys very, very soon.